Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao Ias Academy interview guidance program. So in this particular lecture, today we will be discussing about the privatization of space sector. So participation of the private sector in space related activities in space industry. So if you understand, ISRO is the India's space research organization. It is India's premier space research organization, and that is Indian Space Research Organization. Now, why private sector participation has been gaining a lot of prominence in recent times? So why it is a very important in recent times? So this is what we have to understand in this present lecture. However, why it is specifically in news, participation of the private sector is in news in recent times. So this is particularly because recently IIT Madras based space tech startup. Okay, so this is a new startup in the space arena, and this is based in IIT Madras. So they have launched Agnicul Cosmos. They have launched a startup called Agnicul Cosmos, and this Agnicul Cosmos has actually launched a small satellite rocket, right? So it is not soon, but rather it is already launched a small satellite rocket called Agniban S or TED, suborbital technological demonstrator. So since India has a lot of potential for the private sector participation in the space industry, so because it is a sunrise sector and there's enormous potential in the space industry, so because of this reason privatization of space sector in news. Now, not just because of this particular startup, but it is also because of government's recent initiatives with respect to space. For example, the space policy that was introduced by the government, and the government has also launched or established Indian national space related centers. Okay, so this is called as Indian National Inspects. Okay, so the government has launched all these organizations. So they facilitate, regulate, promote space private sector participation in the space industry. So therefore, earlier ISRO used to do all the space related functions, launching satellites, interplanetary missions, everything. Now the space industry has been further expanding and widening, and it is looking for potential opportunities at the global level. So therefore the private sector has been taking up a leading share in the space sector, and the activities like launching satellites will be taken up by the private sector, and ISRO will focus on most important missions. For example, missions like Aditya L1, Shukrayaan, and Mangalyaan, etc. So therefore, in this context, we have to understand the status of India in a global space market. Now, what is the status of India in the global space market? So as per the Space Tech Analytics, in 2021, the year 2021, India is the 6th largest player in the industry. And if you look at internationally, India has 3.6% of the global space tech companies. Okay, so around 3.6% of the world space tech companies are based in India itself. So US leads the list of housing. So US has 56.4% of all companies or all space tech companies. Okay, so if you look at the value of India's space sector or space industry, so Indian space industry was valued at $7 billion, right? So it is valued at $7 billion in the year 2019, and it actually aspires to grow at $50 billion by 2024. So this is the kind of a potential and that the kind of a growth that Indian space industry has been actually seeing in recent times. So after that, if you look at the cost of India's missions or launching satellites, it is much lesser compared to several other space agencies. So therefore, India's missions are generally known as cost effective. and this is considered as one of the most important and standout feature of India's space program. So that is cost effectiveness. So apart from that, India also holds the major distinction. What is that distinction? It is the first country to have reached the Mars orbit in its first attempt. Okay, so this is the major distinction that India had achieved, and in fact in recent times India is the first country to soft land on the southern pole of the moon through its mission called Chandrayaan 3. So therefore the total cost of the Mangalyaan mission is $75 million. So this is a well known fact that India's mission to Mars has costed less than what the Hollywood movies actually do, and it is much lesser compared to the Western standards. So because of this reason, India's space program is much more acclaimed, and now the private sector has also been taking up the burden and the responsibility of ISRO. Now in this context, we have to understand what is the need for privatization of space sector. Now why we need to privatize the space sector? First and foremost, we have to understand that the global space economy is enormous. Now it is currently valued at 360 billion US dollars. Now if you understand what is the India's space industry value, it is $7 billion. However, at the global level, the total space economy is valued at 360 billion. So despite being one among a few spacefaring nations in the world, India accounts for around or only about 2% of the space economy, and it is much more lesser than what is required. So therefore, in the coming years, India's space industry, particularly the private space industry, will start expanding its operations and start further enhancing its overall share in the global space market. So over the last 2 decades, if you look at last 2 decades, private sector has actually played a very important and a very significant role in in most of the spacefaring countries, whether it is China, India and US and many other Western countries in Europe. Now the examples include SpaceX of Elon Musk, the Blue Horizon, Virgin Galactic and Ariane Space. So all these are the major examples of private sector participation in the space industry, and we all know about SpaceX and Blue Origin and even Virgin Galactic. This is especially known for space tourism. Okay, so this is the significance of the private sector participation in the space industry. So however, if you look at the situation in India, so players within the private sector industry have been very limited. So we have to understand it is it requires a lot of capital investment at the initial level, and it also requires sophisticated technology, research, innovation. So everything is required at the higher scale. So because of this reason, the private sector participation in India is limited. Okay, so limited to being vendors and suppliers to the government's space program. Okay, so new opportunities were not exactly explored in India's space market. So because of this reason, there's a need that arises for non-governmental entities. Okay, so there are certain non-governmental entities so to participate in the Indian space program. So this will particularly boost India's market share in the global space economy. Okay, so what does non-governmental entities mean? That it effectively means that the private sector participation in the Indian space program, and that will ultimately boost India's market or space economy at the global level. Right now, in this context, we have to understand the advantages of privatization. So there are certain advantages with privatization. So before actually discussing this, we have to understand the share of different countries in the global space market. Now Indian space contribution is of 2% of the global market share. Now if you look at US, it has a lion's share of 40%, UK with 7%, and India at much lower 2%. Okay, so overall space economy is valued at 360 or 380 billion US dollars, and India in the year 2021 it has just 7.6 billion market value in the global space market. So this is the data with respect to India's participation or India's contribution, India's share in the global space market. So in the coming years, we are much more optimistic that over a period of time, the share and the contribution of India's space program in the global space market will further expand. Now, in this context, we have to understand the advantages of privatization. There are multiple advantages of privatization. So firstly, we have to talk about the existing burden on ISRO. Now, ISRO had been taking up multiple roles, multiple responsibilities. So therefore, when private sector has been actively participating in the space related programs and space related activities, then ISRO would focus on much more important missions like Gaganyaan, Chandrayaan, Shukrayaan. In all those missions, India can easily participate. So therefore, private sector participation will definitely free up ISRO, and ISRO will concentrate on science, research, development, interplanetary exploration, and strategic launches. So that will ultimately benefit the private sector and the Indian Space Research Organization as well. And this is a win-win situation. So after that, now, the other major advantage with respect to privatization is commercialization of Indian space industry. Now, the private players at the global level have started showing the resilience, and they are being more and more successful. Now, that will ultimately bring in competitiveness, and that would reduce the costs and making it more and more affordable. The launch of satellites for different startups, different countries, etc. So therefore, globally, private players in space are increasing due to the commercial benefits that offer when they participate in the space sector, because it is largely considered space is the future. So because of this reason, several people have been coming forward and investing in this sector. So after that, increase in the investment is another major advantage with respect to the privatization, because recently there was a revised direct investment, foreign direct investment in the space sector as well. So the government has allowed 100% FDI in space sector, and this would foster improved technology and efficiency, and that would ultimately benefit the space industry as a whole. So after that, it also offers jobs for the skilled workforce, so it would tap the potential of young entrepreneurs, and it will also create a large scale employment opportunities for the youth, because we no longer rely on the government space agency called ISRO. Rather, there are multiple startups based on space technology, and they can provide employment opportunities for young talented entrepreneurs. So indigenization is also another major factor. Now, what does indigenization actually means? Now, indigenization involves domestic technology, domestic manufacturing, and domestic modeling of different aspects within the space industry. Now, Indian Space Association actually supports government's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Now, Atmanirbhar Bharat is making India self-reliant in production of goods and services, and therefore we will not be vulnerable for the supply chain disruptions that we have already seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. So therefore, Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliant India and Make in India to become a global space leader. Now, infrastructure is also another major advantage with the private sector participation in the space industry. So the Agnikul Cosmos, it had launched India's first private satellite. Okay, so first private launch pad and mission control center at the Satish Dhawan Space Center, that is in Sriharikota. So therefore, infrastructure will also further developed and upgraded by the private sector, and that can be used to launch satellites of different startups and satellites of different other countries. So there's an enormous potential that India can emerge as a global leader in the space industry, because privatization would ultimately make India a global leader in the space sector, because India is poised to become the global leader because of the multiple advantages. Firstly, we talk about the young talented entrepreneurs, and India can produce skilled workforce in the space industry, and its cost effectiveness and the competitiveness and necessary infrastructure, technology, so everything will make India a global leader in the space industry in the coming years. However, in this respect, the government had taken multiple steps to support the private sector in space industry. So before understanding all those steps that were taken by the government of India to promote the private sector, we have to understand about India's Space Research Organization. Okay, so this is a government organization, and this organization was formed in the year 1969 under Department of Space, and it is directly overseen by the Prime Minister of India. Now if you look at the Department of Space, Department of Atomic Energy, and Department of Personnel, so everything will be managed by the Prime Minister itself. Okay, so now we look into the different steps or the measures or initiatives launched by the government to promote the private sector participation in space. So first and foremost, we need to talk about the New Space India Limited. So this New Space India Limited was created in the year 2019, and this was wholly owned by the government of India undertaking, and it is under the administrative control of Department of Space. So therefore it will help in transferring technologies which actually developed by ISRO to industries for large scale commercialization. Okay, so this is what this is the purpose for which New Space India Limited has been created. So after that, the government has also launched Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center as well. So this is actually an autonomous body, and it was established in the year 2020, and it is under the Department of Space as well, similar to New Space India Limited. So what is the objective of Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center? So it actually aims to create an ecosystem of industry, academia, startups, and attract a major share in the global space economy. So this is the one of the major aim of the Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center. So after that, the government of India had also revised the FDI guidelines for the space industry, so that would help in attracting investments on a large scale. Okay, so this would open up huge investment opportunities for the foreign companies. Okay, so foreign companies will invest in India's space industry. Now foreign direct investment in space sector is allowed up to 100% in few areas, for example satellites, establishment and operations through the government route. However, the 100% is not through automatic route, but rather it is through the government route. Now the government had also established Atal Tinkering Labs. So this is actually the initiative of the Niti Aayog. So Atal Tinkering Labs were established to boost the participation of young people and students in the Indian space sector, not just Indian space sector, but several other fields of science. So this is the initiative of Niti Aayog, and it is in collaboration with ISRO and Central Board of Secondary Education as part of the Atal Innovation Mission. Now Atal Innovation Mission has also launched to develop the curiosity and innovative capabilities among the kids, and this Atal Tinkering Labs are part of Atal Innovation Mission. So the government of India had also launched new space policy, so Indian Space Policy 2023. So this policy has actually formally laid down the regulations of privatizing space missions in India. So it also clearly denoted clear guidelines of operations for New Space India Limited, and even ISRO's commercial arm Antrix, and Indian National Space Promotion and Authorization Center, that is INSPACs. Okay, So therefore it had clearly laid down different guidelines or operations for these organizations. So we have discussed about the private sector participation benefits and the government initiative steps to promote the private sector participation. So what is the way forward? What should be the way forward in coming years? Now, optimal utilization of space technology is very important because that will revolutionize the delivery of governance services and enhance the developmental efforts. So this is where we link the space with governance and development of people. So this has been particularly aimed at improving livelihoods of the people. So after that, Indian space sector can potentially inspire the young populace. Okay, so we have young people, and Indian space sector has the capability to inspire and attract the young populace with the scientific curiosity, and it also encourages them to pursue career in STEM fields. So STEM is science, technology, engineering and mathematics. Okay, so or medicine maybe. Okay, now even Chandrayaan 3 had also attracted a large number of young minds towards the space sector. Now, Indian space sector has an opportunity to create a vibrant ecosystem for startups and even for the private enterprises. So now, being one of the few spacefaring nations, now India has emerged as one of the most important and most crucial spacefaring nations, particularly because of the recent Artemis Accords. Everything was signed. Okay, so therefore India has been increasingly encouraging the private sector participation through various reforms, so that are expected to help India achieve market share of more than 10% in the global space sector by 2030. So overall, the objective is to achieve the market share of 10% by the year 2030 from the current levels of just 2%. Okay, so that's all about the private sector participation in the space industry. And if you really like our work, please like our video and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And please remember, if you have any doubts, please comment those doubts in the comment section and we will definitely answer your doubts. So thank you.